Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and our program, Get to Know. I'm your host, DP Lyle, and I'm here with my partner in crime, as usual, Kathleen Antrim.
Thanks, Doug. It is great to be here, and I'm extremely excited to have one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite traveling companions to the Middle East. She is a New York Times bestselling author, Wall Street Journal bestselling author, USA Today bestselling author, oodles of things going on, which congratulations on. You have so much going on, and I love it when great things are happening for great people. Their book, The Last Mrs. Parrish, was a Reese Witherspoon selection. I mean, I could just go on and on. Lynne Constantine, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So, would you prefer us to refer to you as Liv? Because I know you and Valerie write together as Liv Constantine, or should we just call you Lynn? What do you
You
prefer?
can just call me Lynn. It's become a bit of a pickle because we have written, yes, all the books up to this one coming out together. But now Valerie's taking a little break working on a solo project. So the next two books and a bunch of novellas that have just come out are only me under Liv. And so I like to joke and say, I think we should just cut the pen name bit because it seems a bit silly to say that Liv Constantine is the pen name of Lynne Constantine, since it's only two letters different, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
among us. So yeah, so I'm trying to kind of figure that out when I go to conferences or whatever. I'll be Liv, but I'll answer to either Lynn or Liv.
Okay, very good.
Yes,
I kind of like it. I think it's kind of cool. You've got an alias.
I like it.
Anyway,
Yes, right.
so I always like to ask about writers' childhoods.
Hmm.
So, what I would like to know is, do you believe that your childhood contributed to you becoming an author and a writer? Do you think, I mean, were you an extroverted child, an introverted child? Were you an athlete? Did you read books a lot? How did your childhood possibly impact it?
Well, I definitely read a lot. I think, my mom took us to the library every week and it was like the highlight. We'd pick books out. And as I got older, my mother, my aunt, my sister, and I would read the same books and sort of have an informal book club. I was an avid Nancy Drew fan. I mean, I could not wait for that, each week to go. My father would take me and we would buy the next book and I would just devour that. And then when I reached a point where I could kind of figure out what was going on. Then I graduated to Dean Koontz into into other. So I've always been drawn actually to thrillers, and I've always loved telling stories. So I was an extrovert, not so much an athlete. I'd like to be, but I don't really think I am that athletic. I don't know. I think it's maybe I'm too self-conscious to be like a true athlete. If no one's watching, probably I could be a great athlete, but otherwise no. But um, even when I was younger, like my best friend and I would take all of the dolls that we were not even Barbies, but I had a lot of dolls that my parents would bring from different countries, and I would tell stories with them. So I would have the maid be, pregnant by the husband. So I was writing like scandalous stories even as a child. Not that that was anything happening in my house because it wasn't, but we were the very like boring sort of family that there was no maid anyway in our house, but yeah, so I just always loved been drawn to stories and that kind of thing, or asking what we play the what if game all the time, or what would you rather,
Oh,
those were,
that's cool.
yeah.
So, how did you decide to start actually writing? I mean, where did that come from? And then I want to know, how did you and Val, your sister, start writing together?
Sure. I mean, I actually always thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and that's what everybody told me because they said I was such a good arguer. And I thought I would go into criminal law, be a prosecutor, because I love justice. And then the paranoid part of my brain was like, yeah, but what if these criminals come after you and kill you? So then that kind of went away. And then I wanted to be a psychologist. So after I had my undergrad was in human development, and then I was going to get a master's in counseling. And then I realized I can't sit in a room and listen to people complain all day. So I moved into business, but I would always wanted to, like, I would write on the side, and I was in marketing. So I've always been in a creative field. And I think marrying those two desires, the criminal and the psychology, is how I ended up writing what I write. But the first book that we wrote actually was called Circle Dance. And it was my idea. I said to my sister, we read so many books about other ethnicities and, Italian families and Chinese families and Irish families, and there's not really anything about Greek families. and we're Greek, and but we're not married to Greeks. And my grandmother had passed at that point, and my mom was born here. So, I just felt like my children were not going to have that same experience. So I wanted to memorialize that for them. So she and I got together and we wrote this book called Circle Dance about two Greek American sisters, and their grandparents and their parents. And I bought a book called How to Write and Sell Your First Novel. We followed that to the letter, right? We finished it, didn't edit it at all, and started sending it out to agents, so naive, like having no, and this is back in the day where you had to mail it, right? You would,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you'd write in, there was no email. So we'd have a written, mail query. We'd hear back, okay, send me 2 chapters. This went on for like a couple of years. And then we finally did find a Greek publisher who published it. And this was back in 2005, I think. And at this point, right before I moved, so we were both in Maryland at the time. We moved, I had my twins, and it was actually not until I went to Thriller Fest in 2012 that I got really inspired. And Doug, I remember meeting you there at that very first one,
Yep.
and you were so kind to me. And it was so inspiring, but intimidating to be around all of these amazing writers, right? And and they're so friendly there, which is wonderful. And that's when I came home and got serious. I built my website, I finished my first thriller, and then I made Valerie come with me. So she said, well, I'm not a thriller writer. I said, it doesn't matter. It's really about writing craft. It's just, great. So she came with me in 2013. And then she said, how about we start collaborating together? So that was how we started. And we wrote, another book that never got published. And then it was The Last Mrs. Parrish that got us our agent and our first publishing deal. And then our careers took off after that.
I mean, that is such a fabulous book. I mean, all your books are great. And the twist in that is just, I mean, mind-blowing. Where did you come up with that twist?
We were taking a walk. It wasn't even intentional. We were talking about women who are very mercenary and targeting a rich man with no regard to their family or their children. And we each claim credit. But since I'm on here, I'm going to say, I said to her, what if things didn't turn out the way that woman really thought, you know what I mean? This perfect picture. And we looked at each other and said, oh, that's the book. And so that's how Last Mrs. Parrish, it started with that very twist. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
How does your collaborative process work? Being sisters and all of the baggage there, and
Right.
then being authors and all the baggage there. How do you guys get the cat fight out, and how do you make things happen?
We get along remarkably well. And I
Yeah.
think part of that stems from the fact that we're 13 years apart and we have 2 brothers in between. So in a sense, we didn't, she was gone and out of the house before I was like 10, so we didn't really have that sibling rivalry or, it's such a different. And when I became a teenager, she became, my best friend. And I would spend summers with her. She was married at this point, and her children, who are my nephews, are more like brothers to me. It's very, so when we write together, like we usually will start with a premise or a twist, in this case, the twist. And then we spend 2, 3 weeks kind of shaping the story and who are the characters and going back and forth and talking about it and ironing most of that out. And then we both write, we just say, okay, what do you want to write? We talk every day and say, all right, I'll write this scene, you write that scene. We email them to each other and we say, feel free to, edit. So then in track changes, we'll both, edit. And it goes on that way until we have a first draft. And usually the time that it kind of conflict sometimes creeps in is if after the first draft is done and we've both read it through and we've agreed on something and one of us might say, I don't think this is working, I want to dismantle the whole thing. And that if the other person doesn't agree, right, it's like, oh, come on, are you serious? Like, so that can be, and there are times when we've had to do that, and then there are other times when it was just nerves of one person and we had to kind of talk them off the ledge and say, look, no, this is working, this is why, calm down. And so yeah, I mean, but for the most part, thankfully, we haven't had any big blow ups or anything like that. I mean, occasionally it'll get a little tense and we'll just say, okay, like, let's talk tomorrow. And then the few instances where we really couldn't come to a meeting of the minds, we would we would just email the editor and say, here's 2 scenarios. We wouldn't say whose was whose, which do you think? And then we would go with that. But we've, especially as we've evolved over the years, I mean, we both really at our heart want what's best for the book. So it's no one has an agenda of pushing like, well, this is my idea or this is your idea. It's really like what makes the most sense for these characters and what makes the most sense for the book. And as long as you can demonstrate that, then the other person will say, okay, we're good.
That's great. I mean, I just think that it's amazing that you have, two sisters who obviously get along so well,
Yeah.
and that you can collaborate like that. Because a lot of people have a hard time collaborating. They don't want somebody
True.
else coloring on their picture. Do you
Yep.
guys outline so that you kind of know what direction you're going, or do you guys just pants back and forth, whatever you're?
We've done both. I mean, we do know that the end, even though, but it has in a couple of instances that has changed. But we definitely know like what's going to get things kicked off, what the end is, and then we'll say, all right, let's figure out like we'll maybe do 10 chapters at a time, just to have a bit of a roadmap to say, okay,
Right.
let's. And then we also though allow each other the freedom to deviate from whatever we've said because we know we're going to go through 3 or 4 times and edit this thing. So it's not, we don't want to worry that like, oh, I might write something that conflicts with Valerie because we'll fix it if we do, which that has been very freeing. Like, with the very first book, Circle Dance, we did write a very strict outline. And we later went back and revised that book because there were actions those characters took that were not at all in line with the characters because we had plotted the whole thing before we knew them, right? And so we were like sticking to this outline. It was like, no, like he would never do that, or he wouldn't. So now we know, let's let them evolve. Let's get to know them as they go, and we'll fix whatever we need to fix in revision.
I like that. That's actually very cool. This is obviously a big discussion in writers' conferences all the time about pantsing and outlining and all of that. I'm definitely more of a pantser. Um, and I think outlining is good as long as you realize it's merely a suggestion.
Right.
It's like stop signs in Italy. It's merely a
Yeah, right.
suggestion. It
Right.
doesn't mean that you
Yes.
have to do that because you don't know these people when
Yes.
you're building your outline in that first few weeks. You don't know them yet.
Yeah.
So later they're going to act differently than you thought they were going to act. And so I think that's the reason I like pantsing is because I'm getting to know these people as I'm telling the story. So,
Yeah.
but that's interesting the way you put that. I like that. You do collaborate and get that done and you work in sections. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it a lot easier, and it's
Yeah.
half the work, which is very nice.
Yeah,
So,
So
exactly.
tell us about the new book that's coming out June 17th, I believe.
yes. So that's Don't Open Your Eyes. And this book, this is a little bit of a departure. It's still a psychological thriller, but it has, um, I don't even know what to call it. Not really a supernatural element, but a bit of one. So this is about a woman named Annabelle who begins to have dreams that come true. And it starts off very banal. She sort of dreams about a restaurant that's changed the name, and she goes to work the next day, and her boss takes her there, and it's the same as in her dream. And she's just like, oh, I must have read about it. And then she starts to she has a dream about her husband, and he's choking her. Like, and this is a woman in a perfect marriage with a wonderful doctor husband, two great, she's got like the perfect picture perfect life. Anyway, her dreams begin to get more terrifying. Her family's in danger. She dreams of, I don't want to give too much away, but she dreams about some like real world events that come true. And that's when she says, okay, well, these are visions of the future. And so as the book goes along, she's really trying to determine what's her anxiety, what are dreams, can she stop them? And there are some instances where she'll do something to try to prevent something and she'll make it worse. So she kind of feels like she's spiraling out of control. There's a parallel storyline with her daughter, Scarlett, who is chatting with a friend online that she doesn't tell anybody about, and that starts to escalate. And of course, we're wondering, is this a predator? Is it not a predator? And then there's an unknown wife character that kind of pops in. So there's a lot of mystery. Oh, and there's a mysterious handsome man that keeps coming in her dreams too. So there's a little bit of of that. But it really plays around with the idea of destiny and choice and how much control do we really have over our lives? If we knew what was going to happen tomorrow, could we change it? Or is it going to happen regardless of what we do, right? I mean, if we go this way, is it fate? And also how much do our anxieties and our subconscious play? So all of that kind of comes into play. And, there's lots of twists, and it is still a psychological thriller. So things are not what they seem as usual.
I am so excited about this
It's a
book.
great cover.
I love the
yes,
cover too.
gorgeous.
It's
They really,
very spooky.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So Lynne, tell us where our viewers and listeners can get your books.
Sure. Well, anywhere books are sold, so your favorite independent bookseller, anywhere online. If you go to our website, livconstantine.com, there's links to everything as well as to all of our social media. And there are also links to events. I'll be doing a book tour, just like a 2-week book tour starting in Maryland. I'm going to Ohio and Missouri, and then I'll be doing some events in Connecticut. And there's also going to be some online events as well happening.
Very cool. We got to get you out here to Colorado, to Tattered
I
Cover.
would love to do that. Yeah,
That'd
absolutely.
be way cool. Because I'm living out in Colorado now. So we'd get in a little bit of trouble, I'm sure. But
I know. That would be fun. Not too much trouble, just enough trouble.
So, Lynne, it's been great having you on the show. You're absolutely fantastic. This has been just really fun to talk to you and learn more about you. And I want to ask our viewers to please click the thumbs up. It's free and it really helps with the algorithms. And subscribe if you like what we're doing here so you don't miss any of the interviews. And Doug, I'll throw it back to you.
Lynne, fantastic. It's great to see you again. It's been too long. It has
Yes.
been way too long. But we will see you in New Orleans at BoucherCon. So all of
Yes.
your fans can come there and see you, and we'll hang out and laugh a lot. And I'm sure you and Kathy are going to go purse shopping. So there's that.
I know,
So-
right? And so thank you so much for having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, this has been Get to Know here on the Outliers YouTube channel. And as you know, we will be back with more interviews later. Until then, keep reading, keep writing, keep having fun, and don't get caught.